Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What Has Changed Your Life. Today, we're going to talk to Melany Oliver about her journey with emotional abuse at the hands of the people that we are supposed to trust the most, our family. Welcome, Melany, on another episode of What Has Changed Your Life.
Thank you for inviting me to speak. It's lovely to be here. I'm excited to share what changed my life with you and with your audience, with your followers, and then whoever wants to listen.
Yeah, well, you know what? The whole point of this is to talk about things that are uncomfortable so people can feel like they're not alone, maybe get some ideas on how they can help themselves. And I always believe in the power of sharing. So thank you so much for being brave enough to share your story. So tell us a little
Yeah.
bit.
So
So tell
sorry.
us.
Go ahead.
I think we have a lot, so I'm gonna have to keep that in mind. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. I'm half Brazilian, half English, but I was raised in the Middle East in Dubai. Um, so I have that mixed background, and throughout my life, growing up in Dubai, we used to always go back to Brazil for summers and spend a little time in England. Um, and it's funny because um, I knew, obviously, as a child, you know that something's off and something's not right. But as a child, you're also not aware of, what love is, what is right, what is wrong, to some extent, because that's all you know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and really, my journey began, in terms of my own inner work, it began in my teens because I started to suffer from depression and suicidal ideation and self-sabotaging patterns. And I got into drugs and all of that. It just kind of like it was just one thing after the other, and things were actually getting worse. They weren't getting any better.
Mm.
um, and it was then that I started to look for healing. I started my journey when I was quite young, and I remember going, like, in Brazil, and where I'm from in Salvador, you have these spiritual centers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up around mediums and around going to these, seeing witch doctors and medium doctors and things like that. That was normal. Like, to me, it
Mm.
was natural. So in terms of healing, I associated that with healing. So around my teens, I started going to these spiritual centers there and getting my energy cleansed, going to see psychic doctors and things like that. And I felt like a slight shift, but it never quite really, it never healed me.
Yeah.
And so I guess it started there. And that actually led me to go on and study holistic and complementary therapies at university. And then after my studies, I continued my studies, but I really dove into more like the new agey kind of things, like the energy heal, a lot of different types of energy healing, hypnotherapy, NLP, and all of that. And after years of investing in myself doing all of that, I was still stuck in certain patterns, and I just couldn't understand like why I spent like 10 years, doing all this healing and healing and healing, and nothing was changing. And it was really when I got my voice analyzed by a guy named John Kelly, and he basically really emphasized and he pinpointed all of my childhood traumas, and it was really, I had a breakthrough basically, and I realized the impact. I knew that by then I was already an adult, and I knew that I was abused, but I didn't really connect the dots to the depth that I needed to. I was like, but it's fine. I survived, right?
Yes.
Anyway, long story short, it was only when I started to heal my childhood wounds that things started to change. That I started to actually heal, and from that moment on, I just focused all my attention on basically healing my childhood wounds and processing my emotions.
So with your abuse, was it more emotional abuse or physical abuse? Because some people think that well, because somebody's yelling at me or they didn't physically lay their hands on me, that's not necessarily abuse,
Yeah.
right? So for you, was it emotional, physical abuse as a child at the hands of your parents?
It was all three. It was physical abuse, mainly by my mother,
Yeah.
um, a lot of emotional abuse and mental, mind games, mental abuse, and all of that. Yeah, so it was all three. So that's why it was, I couldn't deny it, especially with the physical abuse. So, because I work with a lot of clients now that they have been emotionally abused, and it's much harder for them to really grasp the concept of emotional abuse. But for
Yeah.
me, yeah, there was definitely physical abuse, so it's much easier to you just can't deny that.
No, you can't deny that. Absolutely. And nor should we be denying emotional abuse,
Yeah,
right? And that's the thing, I think, because people can't see it, they're like, it's fine. It's fine. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
not fine. When somebody is playing head games with you or somebody is um, gaslighting you or, having narcissistic tendencies towards you and playing those games, those are just as damaging, if not sometimes more damaging than the physical abuse sometimes, right? Because
100%. Yeah,
yeah, it's awful how that happens and people don't recognize it as being something real, you know?
yeah. And I still find that a lot of my clients struggle with really
Mhm.
grasping that. Like
Yeah,
I have found over the years that it takes some time, like 2, 3 months, for it to really sink in that wow, I was abused,
yeah,
because no child wants to come to the realization that mommy doesn't love me or daddy doesn't love me, or to
yep,
really acknowledge emotionally that I was abused. It's very challenging for a lot of people, especially when
absolutely.
what you said, that it was just emotional. But I say just, but
It's not just,
it's not just. Yeah,
it's not just. And the thing is, as children, we're born and we don't know as we're growing up in our lives that that's abuse. And the only
yeah,
way we know is when we go to somebody else's house and you're like, "Hey, is this happening to you?" And they're like, "No.
yeah,
No, that's not happening to me at all." Or you go to someone's house and you see what it looks like to be in a home with love.
yeah,
And then you're like, "Wait a minute. You mean what I'm experiencing is not normal, right?
yeah,
It's not what everybody experiences. This isn't what love looks like." And that's when, as children, you understand. And then, because, you want the love of that parent so badly, you try and do so much so that you're like, if I do this, then they will love me.
yeah,
If I'm just good, though, they will love me, right? But the
yeah,
real
yeah.
thing is, no matter what you do, it isn't going to change them.
No, and that's the sad part. If it's really
Yeah.
if they're toxic, if they're a narcissist, if they struggle with their own sort of mental health, and these types of mental health is not diagnosed,
Mhm.
it's and yeah, I remember when I was a teen going to some friend's house and seeing how their relationship was with their mother, and I felt jealous, in some ways. I was like, I want that, and
Yeah.
I had to come to terms with I'll never have that.
Yeah.
um, and like you said, I didn't know until I actually started to see, wait a minute, it's not like that, at home. But then when you go back and there's all the gaslighting, like you mentioned before, like, oh, you're ungrateful, and all I mean, I was brought up Catholic,
Yeah.
so I had the whole like Catholic thing going on as well. It's challenging. It's crazy making, because then you start to believe that you are ungrateful and that you're the bad one.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
yeah,
And then it all manifests in different ways when you go out into the world and you start trying to create relationships with other people. Naturally, you're guarded because you're like, are they going to hurt me too? Right?
100%.
And then anxiety shows up, depression shows up. eating disorders show up. As you said, you got into drugs and alcohol,
Yeah,
right?
and self-harm as well.
And self-harm and suicidal, because it's so, the weight is so heavy. And like you said, until you start going into doing the deep, deep work to heal and to let go and to give up that power that that person has over you, that's when the work begins, right?
Yeah, and I'll add to that and say that, we as children, our parents are supposed to teach us about love and about relationships and all of that, and we learn by observing our parents and by the way that they treat us.
Yes.
So what happens is, like, especially if you're abused, you then internalize that abuse and then you start treating yourself like that.
Yes.
So for me, because I was beaten almost to death, like several times, I was on the road to self-destruction. I was programmed to hate myself,
Yeah.
basically to destroy myself and destroy who I am. And so then you, as an adult, that's what I was acting out,
Yeah.
with all the drug abuse, with the self-harm, cutting myself, and all of that stuff. So you internalize that, and then you start to treat yourself like that. And like you said, you expect other people to treat you the same.
Yep.
And then because your soul is trying to heal, you then also attract that to you, right? And then you
Yes.
just repeat that pattern again and again until you actually heal it. Yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, all we're trying to do is feel safe.
Feel safe, and you feel safe when you're loved.
Yeah. Yes. When you can be who you are wholeheartedly meant to be, then you feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Like the core need, basic need of human life is to be safe. And the people that were supposed to make us feel safe made us feel the exact opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people say, but my parents did the best they could. And this is also one of the ways I get that. I get that they did the best they could. And this is sort of, goes through generations. Their parents probably did the same to them and so on, but it still doesn't excuse the behavior. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. Because if you're saying that, you're just dismissing your own wounds, and then you're just re-traumatizing yourself, and you're not going to heal by letting them get away with it. And when I say that, I don't mean by staying in blame either, because that's not going to help you. I'm saying we need to point out what was wrong.
Yeah.
And so that we can heal.
Yes. Now, when you say point out what is wrong, is that more for yourself, or is that pointing out to you, to the abuser, saying, listen, you did this to me? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So I can maybe share a little bit of my journey.
Sure, absolutely.
I think the first part is always for yourself. But there came a point, and I did that a lot, and healing my wounds. But there just came a point in my journey where I just had some sort of insight, and something clicked in me where I felt that by not voicing my truth, by not confronting them, I'm still under, in some ways, like a little girl scared and to confront them, because they are my parents and I should be ever so grateful and sort of bow down to them, which I am. I'm saying this, to exaggerate a little bit, but there came a point where I felt the importance of standing up to them and sharing my truth, and not being scared of what they think of me or what they're going to say. And eventually I was ostracized. But if that's what it took to love myself, to be true to myself, then I said to myself, I can't live allowing that, because unconsciously I'm telling myself that it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's not okay.
No.
And I really believe that the spiritual path and the healing path is about truth. Like a big part of it is about truth. So yeah, it's, for me, it just got to that point where something just happened, and I said I just had to confront them. And so yeah, in the beginning of the journey, I think it's really important just to do it for yourself, because if you're
Mhm.
not emotionally um, prepared to confront them, you're just going to get re-traumatized and abused and all of that. And it took me like a good 10 years. Like I didn't just do this overnight, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I did a lot of inner work in it, and I prepared myself a lot, to a point where when I did get all the attacks and the smear campaigns and all of that, it didn't really affect me.
It just bounced right off you.
It just bounced right off. And I felt even some people's projected like hatred, and it literally just bounced off me, because I was in my truth and I
Right.
was in integrity. I wasn't saying
Yeah.
all this stuff to, um, I don't hate them.
Mhm.
I got to a point, I actually forgave them and I love them and I pray for them. And I got to a point where, yeah, I wasn't wounded anymore from what they did. So therefore they couldn't hurt me.
Yeah.
It's still
That's good.
sad, I will say,
Yeah.
like losing your family, and I'm talking everyone, brothers, sisters, aunts, grandpa, like everyone like attacking you. It's still sad, but I was prepared
Yeah.
for it, because I knew the consequences of my decision. I
Yes.
knew what was coming. So
And you had to do what you had to do to live your true life. And
yeah,
what made them uncomfortable was you speaking that truth to
yeah,
them and saying this is what you've done.
yeah.
And them not taking accountability for what they did.
No, and even people that witnessed the abuse denied it.
Mm.
Oh yeah, it wasn't that
Mm.
bad, or belittled it and just
Mm.
minimized it. Oh, it wasn't like that. Are you sure you remember that? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also the thing is, the more that you heal, the more you remember.
Yeah. And the thing is too, as they're just dismissing you because, well, you were a child. You probably just, imagined those things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're just,
yeah.
making that up, right? Or embellishing it is something I've also heard people say. And it's like, no, I
Exaggerating it
getting
is the
hit in
one I got.
the ass. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard and so brave to go into that journey because a lot of people unfortunately struggle with doing the healing work because of how painful it can be. And when did you turn to drugs and alcohol to heal, like to help you with the pain?
Oh, I remember trying my first cigarette. I was 11.
Wow.
Yeah, 11.
Wow.
And I think I started drinking as well. Like I remember stealing, me and a friend of mine stealing her mum's wine. She was Italian,
Yeah.
and finishing it. And yeah, I was about around 11. It was quite
And
young.
so, yeah. So what made you realize, oh my goodness, I've gone through the alcohol, I've gotten into drugs. When did you realize I've got to stop?
It was in my early 20s.
Hmm.
Um, and I just realized that this. I moved back to. I was living in England. I was doing uni there and everything, and the drugs there got worse. And I moved back to Brazil thinking it would get better, and I wanted to find my roots and all of that. But it actually just got worse because the drugs were cheaper, and uh, um, I got lost in there for a while. And I remember I was on my own. I was in, my parents' apartment at the time, and I was looking outside, and I realized that things were getting worse. And I actually made a decision. And I remember making this decision. It was a conscious decision. I said, if I stay here,
Hmm.
it's not going to end well,
No.
because I was just on this self-destructive path. And in that moment, I made a decision to move back to Dubai and to just
Mm.
start over. And the reason why I was avoiding coming back here was because obviously my mother was here and my father and all this stuff, and I wanted to avoid living with her at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah, I
um,
get.
but in the end, I had to confront her. I had to. But from the moment that I made the decision, I packed everything. In 2 weeks, I was back here and got a job and started like to get sober, basically, in terms of the more hard drugs. But I remember I was still drinking, and just mainly like socially drinking and smoking. But like the stopping smoking was like 10 years ago. And it was a consequence of my healing, because I remember I kept trying to stop smoking, and I couldn't do it. So I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to focus on my healing. And I just lost the desire to smoke. I can't explain it. I just didn't have. I noticed I was smoking less, and one day I woke up and it had been maybe 3 weeks, and I hadn't smoked. And then the 3 weeks turned into 3 months, and now it's been 10 years, and I haven't looked back. I don't have the desire. And the same thing happened with alcohol. The more that I was healing and doing my inner work, the less desire that I had to drink. And with alcohol, it's been at least six or 7 years now that I've stopped. And I just, again, I lost the desire. It was a consequence or a side effect of my healing.
Yes.
And the same with the drugs. Like, I've just got no desire to do any of that anymore. Like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Well, because part of the thing is, when you're on these journeys, when you start going down that path and you're healing, it becomes who you are with the healing. And then that stuff, because most people use drugs and alcohol to numb the pain.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So now when the healing begins and you're going through that journey, that's not needed anymore, because you're gaining coping mechanisms that help you deal with the pain that you're in. Because sometimes for some people, the pain is so great that the only thing is alcohol and drugs to take that pain away. And but they're not doing the work, right? You've got to go deep when you do that kind of work, the trauma work that you do.
Oh, 100%. Like, I always say, like, I've been through many black holes.
Yeah.
But the only way out is through. Like, I haven't found another way. I spent years doing all like the energy healing and all this stuff, and it makes you feel good initially. You get a little quick fix of like feeling good energetically, but then I was noticing, like, a few weeks later, a few months, I was back in the same pattern. Like, what is going on? And so that's when I realized the importance of emotions and processing the emotions. And once you process that emotion at the causal level, you release that pain. You're not carrying it like a burden anymore. Yeah, okay, I'm not denying that it wasn't painful, but there's no pain there for me to cover up with. And you're acknowledging the truth of what happened. So I'm not in denial of what happened, and I'm not in pain. So therefore, I don't need any alcohol or drugs to cover it up, I guess.
Yeah. Now, did you have a therapist that helped you through it, or a life coach, or who guided you through that healing process? Because that would be a very hard thing to do on your own, I would imagine.
Yeah, I had many. I had many different therapists, many guides that helped me along the way. Yeah, I didn't just stick to one. But yeah, I highly, highly recommend that people get help, because I wasn't able to do it on my own. Obviously, after some time, like in the most recent years, there have been some deep wounds that are kind of, I know how to sort of initiate my own process and hold myself through these painful emotions. But in the beginning of my journey, I got help all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine, like I said, that's such a painful journey to go through, and having somebody guide you through it in a safe way so that you're able to go through all the different things, not necessarily relive the trauma, but how to deal with the pain within so that you can move forward, would be so incredibly helpful. So I think a big message there is, make sure you're not doing it on your own. Do it with somebody who's a trained trauma specialist, and make sure that you get help for sure.
100%. And I'll add, because I remember at the very beginning of my journey, I went to some energy healers and things, and I started to share about my mother and the traumas and stuff, and they kept saying that I need to forgive her and all of that. So in some sense, they were also re-traumatizing me, and belittling and minimizing my trauma, and it was because they themselves hadn't gone through it. And it was only when I found a counselor and a therapist that actually acknowledged the depth of the trauma that I went through, and that they themselves had gone through the same, that I felt, wow, I'm not crazy. Like, and then I was in a space to sort of heal and feel, but it took a little while to find someone that actually saw me and knew that I wasn't like exaggerating, and I wasn't, making this up. Like, why would I make this up?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's important that whatever you're going through, to find someone that has been through that and that has healed themselves, so that they know, obviously they know the way, they've been through that journey, and they can help you navigate your emotions and your feelings, and acknowledge the depth of your pain. Because I think once you feel that, basically you feel that they understand you.
Yes. And you
you
feel
feel
like
understood.
finally somebody validates my feelings, that I'm not, like you said, I'm not losing my mind. I'm not crazy. And somebody says, you know what? I get where you are. I get where you're coming from. And this is how to move forward from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Because you
yeah.
don't want to relive the past. You don't want to go through that again. Right? Like, thank you. I don't need to go through it again. But some people, like, I've heard that too, where people say, well, forgive and whatnot. It's like, but why is it me that has to forgive? Right?
Yeah.
Why do I have to do the work? Why do I have to be the one to forgive that person for what they did to me? Right? And it's like, sorry, the dog's drinking.
Yeah, I can hear. It's fine. I've got dogs too.
It just sounds like a waterfall right now. But yeah, I agree with you. And the thing I think people need to be clear on, forgiving, if you do forgive someone, does not mean you're forgetting what they did or
100%.
accepting what they did. Right? It's about taking your personal power back so that you can heal. And I think that's an important distinction. I think some people think that forgiving means, okay, I forgive you, we'll forget about it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? No, you're not forgetting about it. You are letting go of the power that they have on you, and you are taking back your personal power. And that way, like I said, you can heal moving forward.
And it doesn't mean reconciliation either, especially if the behavior hasn't changed. Because I got accused of being resentful and holding on to all this resentment. And I said, no, I'd love to have you in my life, but as long as, the relationship has to be based on love and respect.
Yes.
And if you cannot love me, and if you cannot respect, or at least, okay, you don't have to love me, but at least respect me. Yeah. And, respect my, then if you can't do that, then you can't be in my life anymore, because I won't allow that.
Yeah. Boundaries are so important for people that are toxic for you. And and like you said, you set up boundaries around yourself and said, this is behavior that I will not accept any longer in my life. And in turn, people got turned against you. Brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole family kind of turned against you because they weren't accepting their own truth, right?
Yeah.
But
and it would mean that, if they really did, acknowledge what I'm saying, and they would have to also acknowledge, what happened, like that they actually witnessed it, that they didn't do anything, maybe the guilt that they felt, and acknowledge all sorts of things that obviously they don't want to acknowledge.
Yes. Now, you have siblings. How many siblings do you have?
2.
And
both younger.
Did they have the same type of abuse onto them that you had, or was it different?
From what I heard as well, and from what I experienced, I got it worse. Me and my brother are very close together, so he got it as bad as I did a lot of the times, but I was the first child. I did get it worse, but they still got the same physical mental, emotional abuse. My sister didn't get it as bad, but she still got it. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
remember.
And that's hard because you were saying that they don't talk to you either. Or do they?
No, they don't. Recently, they have started, but it's not the same as before. They still don't want to address the elephant in the room. They're kind of
Mm.
trying to pretend everything is okay when it's not, and it's okay. I'm kind of letting them be for now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their way of unconsciously saying like, I love you, and trying to make amends. Um, but every time I raise this issue,
Yeah.
nobody wants to talk about it. They just kind of want to brush it under, the
Yeah.
carpet. So I have, like, recently with my brother, he sent me a message just the other day saying he just remembered us going to a concert, and I just messaged back politely, and my father as well. But again, no one's addressing
The
the
elephant in the
thing.
room.
But
Yeah.
I've kind of, for now, because they've been respectful, finally, like in the beginning, I just got attacked.
Yeah.
And I just kept having to set that boundary and set that boundary. Like, since they're being respectful now, and in some ways loving, I'm kind of allowing it, but it will come to, if they do want to go any, so have a deeper connection or a real relationship,
Yeah.
then I think it's important to address it. But I don't feel that they've not done their own inner work, so I don't feel that they're capable of really understanding the depth of what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, but let's see. So it's kind of like, it's new, but it's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Which is nice that you have that
Yeah,
communication with them and but you're right. I mean, part of you is probably extremely guarded because you're thinking you guys haven't done the work yet or acknowledged the elephant in the room because, you know, in order for them to be set free as well, they have to acknowledge the elephant in the room,
yeah,
right?
exactly,
And then
100%.
in order for you to feel safe with them and to continue a relationship with them, they have to acknowledge and
We have to
validate.
talk,
We have to
you
talk
know?
about it. Yeah. Yeah, because you're gonna be like, I'm gonna hold you at arm's length because I'm a little bit concerned that you're gonna attack me again. And
Yeah,
I don't need that. I don't want that. And so I'm gonna keep you here and let's see how it goes.
correct.
Is
Yeah,
that fair to say?
yeah. It's challenging because, um, I know that they don't want to talk, and don't want to go there, but I want to go there.
Yeah.
Obviously, so that we can have a better connection and all of that. But what do you do? Because they don't want to, then I'll be enforcing my will upon them. And so
Yeah.
it's a tricky
It's very
situation. But right now, I'm just kind of like allowing it, since, there's no, at least from my brother and my father, there's no direct like attacks or abuse anymore. Um, so yeah, let's see.
let's see. Let's
At
see.
least I'm showing them, love. Like, I would love a relationship with them, but like I said, it has to be based on love and respect, and it will be, to have a deeper connection. We would have to talk. We'd have to talk openly, like adults,
And
without,
be real. And be
yeah,
real. And then the parties involved acknowledge the situation. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to you. And then if,
yeah,
your father, you say to him, this is what, you did kind of thing, right? And him accepting responsibility for that,
yeah,
right? And saying, yes, you know what? I was not making excuses, but this is what happened. This is where I was. This is, blah, blah, blah kind of thing, and enable for you to move forward.
yeah. I mean, for my father, I think it's challenging because he wasn't around. Like, he was away
Mhm.
at sea when in my early years, or he would be at work, so he didn't see it.
Oh,
So that's why it's harder for him. Like, he can't believe it. You
mm.
know,
Well,
he
yeah,
didn't witness it.
he didn't witness it. So he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
That makes it hard because that's his wife.
yeah,
right?
But my
And
aunts, my grandmother, they all witnessed it, so they can't deny it. So
yeah, yeah, that's hard. That's really hard to deal with because, yeah, because on one hand, he's probably hearing a completely different story from his spouse than the story that you're sharing.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And he's like, who do I believe? What do
Yeah,
I do here? She's my wife. She's my child. What do I do?
yeah.
Yeah, that would be a hard situation to be in.
So it's
You mentioned,
challenging.
yeah, you mentioned before that you had some suicidal tendencies. Did you ever try to end your life here?
I did once take a lot of meds, but I don't think it was. I did get like drowsy, but I wasn't to that point. I played around with cutting myself basically.
Mm,
Um, but again, it wasn't to the point of, um, actually, I don't want to say like really attempting it, but I would
you
play
were toying
around with
with
that idea.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were flirting with it, thinking
correct.
it would
Yeah,
be better. Yeah. And that's so hard because a lot of people, especially through this pandemic, have been going through so many different things. And having the kids at home, sometimes home is not a safe place.
yeah.
And having the kids there at home going through this, what would you say to a child who happens to come across this about them having some suicidal thoughts and ideology and thinking, what advice would you give to them?
Wow, that's tough. That's really hard because they want to believe that their parents love them, that their parents. But the advice I would give is, um, if you can, if you have a sibling or a family member that you trust, that is not abusive, that loves you, then perhaps speak to them, but know that all of this, that you can heal this, that
Yeah.
it's all a matter of, feeling your emotions, and if you can, to get help. um, I know that in the US and in Canada you have like these,
Kids
um,
help them.
that you can call. I don't think they have them here, so that's why I can't, um, suggest that here. But yeah, to find help or support somehow.
Yeah.
um, I mean, even reach out to me if you want to. I'll happy to sort of give you some, advice and sort of guidance in terms of processing your emotions so that you can deal with these suicidal tendencies, because it's all, from my experiences, you're actually hating yourself and you're in denial of the truth.
Yeah.
So the sooner that you can acknowledge the truth and feel the painful emotions, the quicker that you will no longer have these, suicidal tendencies, basically.
Yeah. And there is help available, and you just have to pick up the phone. Like I said, you said in Canada, we have kids help phone. And what I'll do in the comments is I will put their number so that
Yeah,
if you are feeling alone, overwhelmed, you have these suicidal thoughts, call the number. They are there 24/7. They are trained
nice.
professionals on the other end of the phone, and they will help you, and they will help you figure out where to go to get help if you need to get out of a situation as well.
Yeah,
So
because
there are
that's
different,
challenging.
yeah, because that's the thing, right? You're a teenager, you're 13, 14 years old, and you're, being abused. And what do you do?
Where are you going to go? Where are you going to
You're
live?
gonna go. And so that's where the resources come from. And that's where people, at least here in Canada, can get the help that they need and the
Yeah,
resources. So they are there. So we'll put them in the comments at the end of this live. And then if
nice.
you need it, it's there. And that way you can get help and try and get out of the situation that you're in, because it's not easy, especially with the pandemic. And I'm hoping that the kids will be able to stay in school here. They're in school right now, but hopefully, fingers crossed, they can stay there. And then you have teachers available to help you. If you're feeling that your home life is not safe, then you can certainly tell a teacher or principal about it, and they can help
Yeah,
you as well. So those are some resources for you guys if you need them.
awesome.
So now you, in your adult life, are a trauma specialist yourself.
Yeah, I trauma informed coach, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Natural fit, unfortunately,
Yeah,
right?
it kind of just happened that way. But I'm more than happy to help. It makes, it brings joy to my heart. I've worked with so many clients and they're adults who have everything on the outside to be happy, who are, financially well, and they have a house and they have everything going for them, and who still were suffering from depression and suicidal ideation and all of that. And, these are classic symptoms of child abuse.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so I've helped a lot of clients, like you said, clients that were emotionally abused and they struggle to see that they were, and yeah, help them break through some of that, which obviously makes me happy because you don't have to live like that. You know,
No.
of course, it's
No.
hard work. It's not easy. I'll say that it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it for your health, for your sanity, and so that you can live the rest of your life actually experience joy and
Mm,
fulfillment and
yeah.
experience being free from these negative patterns.
Yes. Gosh, wouldn't that be lovely, right?
Yeah, if
To
everyone lived like this,
free.
yeah.
Yeah, to be free from that burden, to be free from that pain. That would be so for so many people, that would be like something they've never experienced before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Melanie, for joining me on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. And to anybody watching, please share this video if you think somebody needs to hear this and know where to go to get some help if they need it. Again, I'll put in the comments the Kids Help Phone here in Canada and the US. And know that you are enough. Know that your feelings are valid and you are strong, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Happy Sunday, everybody. We'll see you next time.